I understand the celebrating, but I feel deflated. And that's what I'm hearing from people. They feel, I used that exact word last night. I said, so you feel deflated. You'll see it on social media a little bit later on my social media later. But that's what people feel like. I feel deflated. And I say, well, they got SNAP, subsidies, got the people who are furloughed. You heard her say that, they got back to work. And they're like, well, that doesn't matter. That should have happened, didn't have to take a shutdown. Those things should never have happened before. This was Donald Trump, MAGA, and the Republicans creating a problem and then pretending they fixed it. So what do you say? Explain to us.
Donald Trump, MAGA, and company haven't created, they're not fixing anything. They're not even pretending that they're fixing anything. They don't care about the thing that we want fixed. And they never did. I look back at my appearance on your show on October 2nd. When we were in day one of the shutdown. And what I said then is that what the Democrats are doing and the reason why they're doing it kind of like dragging their feet while everybody was saying, shut it down, is because it's very sober and it's very serious to take 2 million people and their families who are employed as part of the federal workforce and know that you stand in between them and eating and paying their mortgage and paying their rent. And these are people, not just whatever people think a staffer is or think executive services. These are people working in cafeterias. You were on the Hill, so you know cafeterias are shut down, right? These are people who work on the streets, who clean in the janitorial service. And for them to not have checks and not have relief in place for the checks that they're missing. And then for some of them, not just to be furloughed, but to be fired, to be riffed. Because as I told you on October 2nd, the entire plan of Russell Vought and OMB is to reduce the federal workforce. So shutting down the government was a gift for people who don't care about the government being shut down.
So then why did Democrats do it?
Because there were people like you, Don Lemon, like constituents out there who were saying, you can't do what you did in March. You can't just let the government go. You've got to take a stand. This is the only leverage you have. Shut it down. You better do something. Shut it down. You better not cave. Shut it down. You better stop it right here. Chuck Schumer, show some leadership. There were all of these voices saying that this would show that they cared enough to put something on the line and that they weren't just going to cave when the Republicans weren't willing to negotiate for the 8 extra votes that they needed in order to open the government. So what we have to remember now is just like we have the government that we voted for, because these hateful, demonic terrorists who are running the government right now, that's a November 5th decision. That's November 2024, where that got decided, and it got decided by some Americans who are now saying, but the Democrats, but the Democrats, but the Democrats. And that, to me, is the part that's a little cuckoo.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. That still has not changed my position. If you're going to shut it down, then you need to stick to it.
For how long?
For as long as it takes.
Until January?
Until whenever.
Okay.
It could be January of 2029.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Shut it down.
Let me ask you
Because Trump is never going to move unless you really put him in pain.
And I get that that's messaging. And I understand that people are saying that, but what you're saying to me is absurd, because you can't put Trump in pain. There's no, not that way. Not that way, because what was going to happen, Don, was not that we would have a shutdown until January or February or March. What was going to happen is that Trump was going to get exactly what he really wanted out of this in the first place. Leader Thune and the senators who are Republicans were going to give him what he wants, get rid of the filibuster, ram the CR through on 50 votes, and you know what they were going to do after that? They were going to do exactly what he wanted them to do next. They were going to get rid of mail-in voting. They were going to call for voter ID. They were going to get rid of extended voting days and give him just the one voting day that he wants. They were going to get rid of anything that looks like the Voting Rights Act, even though it's already gutted. Why did you do it? Even if you have people calling for it, why did you do it? If you knew, and Democrats, these people have been in politics for a long time. Chuck Schumer certainly knew that going into this. Certainly,
Any one of the longtime Democrats have known that going into this. Certainly Hakeem Jeffries knew that going into this.
Yeah.
So then if they are such leaders and such strategists and they understood that, why didn't they explain that to the American people? And the people were saying, shut it down, and then just not do it? Because now you have this sort of whiplash and people go, oh, wait a minute, you had the momentum, you had this, and nothing. And here we are.
So here's the thing. I don't think the blue wave is nothing. I think it's significant. I think it is directly because of not just the shutdown and the sacrifice of the millions of employees who went without and are right now still going without money.
Yeah.
I think it was because the health care issue and the Republicans' refusal to do anything about it for even their own constituents has become a #1 talked about issue in terms of awareness. Now, that doesn't excuse the fact that in November, Democrats were saying, I was saying, you were saying, everybody was saying over and over again, Kamala Harris certainly was saying, if you elect this man, then your health care benefits are going to skyrocket and ultimately 20 million people are going to go without insurance. If you elect this man, he's going to have an enemies list. If you elect this man, he's going to attack our own government. If you elect this man, all of that was out there.
Yeah.
And he's in there anyway, and they're doing it anyway. But what we got in the past 40 days, first of all, is what you just finished explaining. Across states where we don't even normally win, we're winning. And that's not just, to me, voters saying, stick with the shutdown. We'll vote for you, Democrats, if you stick with the shutdown. That's voters saying we want different elected officials who are not going to inflict pain upon us, and we now know what we need to do.
Okay, let me ask you, do you think the outcome would have been different if the government wasn't shut down on Tuesday?
I think we would have had a wave, but I don't think it would have been as much as it was. I think kind of the veracity, the ferociousness of the waves were because people were seeing in real time, wait a minute, okay, we didn't vote for this. The MTGs of the world who clicked, oh wait, my son's health care, that's the health insurance that's going to skyrocket, not just those other people, and that's legitimate.
Okay.
So
I hear you.
Yeah, I think when people say, did we get something out of it? I think we got something significant out of it. I'm not about we won, we lost. Once I do kind of agree with Joe Scarborough that people should take the victory for the things that they did get. So securing SNAP benefits for 42 million people until the end of 2026, which means that OMB can't play these games with them. That's
you couldn't
a win.
have gotten that in a normal negotiation without shutting the government
You weren't
down?
going to get it, though. That's why it was happening. So that happened. Getting people who were riffed because OMB is lawless, having the requirement that they come back to work, which the president is now about to sign.
But when the government wasn't shut down, they were working.
When the government wasn't shut down, they were working, they were not fired, and the law is supposed to protect them such that when OMB or the executive branch does something that's illegal, like firing them, that they get their jobs back. But that takes months. It could take a year. And in the meantime, they're suffering. So what they got out of this deal that's about to happen is that those people who were riffed are coming back immediately.
Okay.
So when people ask about Tim Kaine, that's something he cares about because that's a huge number of Virginians that were affected by reduction in force.
Okay, then. So then why are Democrats, you said you don't like to look at this in terms of wins and losses. So then why are the Democrats out there saying, we won? Everyone coming up there, including Tim Kaine, saying this is a win for American people, said that on Sunday night. And they said it all day yesterday. And then you have the news anchor saying this is a win. If you're saying you don't choose to look at it in terms of wins or losses.
I think you have to balance it because of the things you just said. People feel deflated because they were hoping for more and they were hoping for the thing that we need the most, which is for a change in the healthcare tax extension credits. They need the ACA to be fixed. And so while I do think that for the circumstance that we were in, negotiating with terrorists who will kill their own before they will give you anything, and that's just what they are, that's who they are. You know, Don, I graduated from law school in 1997. I've had over 45 jury trials. I've negotiated 40 settlements of 7-figure settlements on plaintiff and defense side. I have crisis managed negotiated settlements with real people hostage. And what I am trying to say is, when you're mediating, you have to know when you have gotten all you're going to get and when it's time to walk away from the table. Now, these 7 Democrats pissed off their own party because they refused to wait for the party to make that decision together. They negotiated behind their backs. They weren't in favor of the shutdown from the beginning. And so they went their own way, did their own thing.
How do you feel about that?
I think that that was wrong. I think that they should have moved as a unit, and they should have given those of us out here who would have maybe been willing to try to start explaining to people ahead of time, explaining to our following, look, we've gotten all we're going to get out of this. People are hurting. People are in pain. There's about to be an exit ramp, and we need to be prepared for that. Those 7 Democrats and that 1 independent, they didn't do that. They went their own way. But when people say, and that's why Schumer, I mean, I don't care anything about Chuck Schumer. He's had a great career. He'll be okay. If he's leader, if he's not, if he's in the seat, if he's not, he'll be all right.
Do you want to stay or you want to go?
I don't care. That's not the focus, right? We got to win right now. And what the people are saying, though, is he should have been able to control his members. And what I try to remind people is, but wait a minute. When that other side is lockstep, like their Stepford senators and Stepford representatives, which they are, they have no brain of their own, they have no independent thought, they don't vote their conscience, they don't vote the cares of their own constituents. People are pissed off about that too. So, what do you want? You want independent thinking members who care about what's happening to their own constituents or not?
So I want to know then this. It sounds to me like what you're saying is that Donald Trump is a king, that he's a dictator, that Democrats cannot negotiate with him. Not only, there's no negotiating, there's no nothing. It's just all you have to do, you have to bend the knee. You have to do what the media companies are doing. You have to do what the politicians are doing. And so there's no way that Democrats are ever going to win with Donald Trump.
That's the opposite of what I'm saying. It's obvious we're going to win.
There's no way the country is ever going to win.
Oh, the country won last Tuesday. That's the opposite of what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
we have the power of the vote, and we have the power of the pocket. If you want to win with those people,
that I agree
you've got to have things on the line that they care about. They care about the money.
Yeah.
Everything begins and ends with, they do not care about humans. And so when you have Democrats who care about human beings, like if you died or I died tomorrow, every member of the Democratic Party would be like, oh, and Don Lemon contributed and Monique contributed and we're thankful for their whatever and whatever. And that asshole in the White House would be like, they never liked me anyway.
Yeah.
So when you have that kind of divide, where you have lawless people who don't give a damn about anybody but a very small group of powerful people with means, and they have that kind of agenda, then you got to get what you can. And that's what I believe this hostage negotiation was. We had federal workers, millions of them.
People are tired of getting what they can. I think the Democrats need some of that, I don't say lawlessness, but they need some of that where, you know, the Republicans were banking on Democrats to do exactly what they did, saying, you know, people are losing pay and it's not going to, because Democrats have their heart, they have compassion. I understand that, but you have to have some people, hang on one second, you and I can have compassion, right? The folks watching can have compassion. I don't necessarily want my leaders to have compassion. I want my leaders to fucking win. I don't care if and I want them to win by, like Malcolm X says, by any means necessary. And so, as I said in the open of the show, it took decades for the civil rights movement to pass. And it wasn't just 40 days. And I know people are suffering, but there are things that we can do to help people, especially Democrats can find things to do to help people.
Were we?
That's the point. But that's my point. We should be. Democrats should be.
You can't pay federal government workers. It's illegal.
Yeah, but you can't pay federal workers, but you can sponsor a family. You can help. You can do something. Someone can help to find a job for someone. I don't know exactly what you can do.
They were hostages. And I think that the cowering of the shoulders with people are suffering needs to be people are suffering.
Yes, but can we not have every time Democrats go, oh, wow, oh, my God.
They work for those people.
What do you mean they work for those people?
The people who who were suffering, they represent
No, I understand
them.
that. You're missing what I'm saying.
It's not
You have
just
to have some people that have compassion, but I want the leaders, I want the leader, whoever is in charge of the Democratic Party and whoever is in charge of the Democratic Party in the Congress and in the Senate, I want them to be fucking ball busters. I want them to tell Donald Trump, I am not blinking, motherfucker, until you give us what we want, and we're not going to settle for the crumbs. I'm sorry, that's what I want from them, and that's what the American people want right now.
I represent 100 people, and 80 of them are starving. And what I'm doing is saying, fuck you, Donald Trump. I am not representing the 80 people.
Yeah,
I am
that's simplifying
failing.
it, though.
It's not. It is real simple. You don't represent America as a representative. You don't represent America as a senator. You represent your constituency, your state, or your district, and you are obligated.
I feel like if we had that mindset during the civil rights movement, when people were losing their jobs, when people were being hanged and brutalized and beaten, and dogs were being sicked on them, and hoses were being turned on them, if we had done that, we wouldn't be here right now, even in this moment, to be able to fight back against this.
And I think that we still have every opportunity to be the wealthier, smarter if we can, civil rights movement. We have the opportunity, but every time you say that, and I heard you when I was listening ahead of time, and when you go back and look at the history, it wasn't members of Congress who were doing that.
Right.
They have a job to legislate. We in the streets gave power to the seats so that we could get the legislation.
But now you're getting at what I'm talking about. But you needed the folks who are in those positions to have a backbone, and then those of us who are in the streets can do what we can to help all of those people.
They didn't have a backbone done. They had votes.
Okay.
And so we
don't have the votes because they don't have a backbone. They haven't had a backbone.
That's not why. That's not why at all.
Okay, go on.
Listen, because we got ACA because of votes. Barely. But it was because of votes, right? We got the Voting Rights Act because of vote. We got the Civil Rights Act because of votes. We got what I hope will come back to us, rights to women's bodies and rights to fair wages because of executive action and because of votes. In the streets is where the movement is. And if people want to say, we're not buying anything for Thanksgiving, it's coming. Get ready, economy.
I agree with that.
We're not buying anything for Christmas, it's coming. If we're going to be boycotting because that's how we show our power, then what that does is make for the type of movement on the home. But I need my legislators to pass laws. I don't need them to be screwing over their own constituents to make a point. When you look at the federal workforce, and you see how that is one of the ways that black people came to own land. That is the way we got educations. That is the way we built generational wealth, which we're now losing and losing and losing. Then you know why white supremacists, like who's running OMB right now, want to kill the federal workforce. Because that's how you get over 300,000 black women without jobs. And that's not just about we don't like black women. That is about we are targeting black economy. We are targeting black wealth. We are targeting black middle class. That is what this represents. Russell Vogt said point blank, I want to cause as much trauma to federal employees as possible so that they do not want to work. That's what he said. And that's exactly what's happening. I don't want to be on the side of helping that.
Michael Fanonis texted me, he says, so what is her plan? Wait until 2026, which may never happen?
Yeah. So even this, like, what is my plan? I think that is actually a very good question, because I think the people who do a lot of talking for a living, of which I am one, I think sometimes we talk just to talk, and the talking isn't advocacy, right? And so we'll say to the Senate leadership or to the House, do something. They need to do something. We voted them in there to do something. And I'll say, well, they're in circumstances we've never been in before, and they're negotiating with terrorists. So the do something has to be figured out on the fly. I don't think that we wait until 2026, but I think, frankly, Mike, that the fact that, at least for this week, the filibuster is still in place saves the possibility of elections in 2026. I agree with him about the threat of there being no free and fair elections anymore if Trump has his way. I think the fact that we got a budget without losing a filibuster means at least until December that they can't go in and decide that we need voter ID and that people who are living in another country don't get to vote anymore unless they're very sick. Did you hear where that idiot said that? Unless they're very sick or they're military, they don't get to vote anymore. So his desire to cement his kingship and to not have elections means that right now, 2026 needs to be our focus. Not getting rid of Chuck Schumer, not primarying the 7 people who didn't vote and put the government back and gave people their money back, but winning. Every day, we need to be gaining as many people as possible with an understanding that the road to 2026 has already started. So support the NAACP, support Black Voters Matter, support organizations that are on the ground, that are building up coalitions of voters who are trying to get people off of the couches. Listen, they're going to do enough damage to their own constituents that they can worry about the red states. They're in trouble. And they're in trouble in other ways. They're failing on the economy. So I think right now, every single day, we have to be doing what I'm trying to do here today. Get us focused on the prize and not worried about what, unfortunately, is yesterday's news, which is what that vote was.
Well, we're still living it. It's not signed yet.
It's not signed, which means as of now, people are still in jeopardy and people are still suffering.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a show. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time with new clips dropping at 2 p. and 8 p. And if you want even more Don Lemon Show content, join the Lemon community. Members get exclusive posts, behind-the-scenes videos, and live chats just for you. So hit the join button or visit our channel page to sign up. Thanks again for all your love and your support, and I'll see you next time.